This is Burley Rutland presenting on my cultural exposure assignment. I attended a event for widows, more geared towards young widows. Of the widows I spoke to, their initial belief after bereavement was that there was no hope, no future, and life was over. Some of them commented that they didn't know what to do or where to go or who to turn to. Interestingly, some commented on how much they missed their husband, and some commented on being glad they were gone and maybe a marriage that wasn't going so well, and also some feelings of guilt over having those feelings towards their husband and then him dying. Spiritually, this was a Christian-focused event. Many of the widows stated that they found hope in Jesus, where they had found no hope in losing their husband. Similar for feelings of having no future, they had come to understand that they had a future because of Jesus, and that life was not over, and they did know what to do because Jesus had a purpose for them, and therefore they have a purpose. Historical and current oppression. Historically, from biblical times on, widows have been looked down on and seen as incapable and burdensome to other members of society. Currently, not a lot has changed. Young widows stated being seen as on the prowl, maybe losing married friends because they were seen as a potential threat to the relationship, maybe after a friend's husband. They're seen or reported feeling seen as needy. They need someone to do the man's jobs in their daily life. They saw themselves socially excluded from couple-centered events, even Sunday schools that were meant for age and stages of married couples. Right down to game nights with friends that were, paired up in couples, and they were seen as the odd person out. Employment is harder. They're seen as less dependable. There's tax discrimination, death tax from the husband, and then fewer tax benefits as a single person versus a married person. And they said they often just feel forgotten and seen as takers and not givers. Brief summary of the event. The event included a meal and a time of socializing, and then also a speaker. The speaker was Vicki Porter. She shared her personal testimony and experience as a widow, and she also delivered a speech with 3 key points, each one based on a specific scripture. First was Psalms 31:7, with the overall point that God has not forgotten you, and therefore you are not forgotten. Psalms 34:18 was used for the second point, and she stated that God is there for you in your darkest hour, and you can depend on Him. And Psalms 112:7 was used for a third point, and she made the point that God can handle the pain you're experiencing as a widow. You are understood by God, and the way you feel does not make you unworthy of love. So, summary, the title of the speech was, Are you on the road or are you roadkill? So the overarching point was, keep traveling the road of life. God is by your side. Don't stop living and get run over. Counseling theories for widows. Unfortunately, there's very little research on counseling this population. That was stated directly in the Davidow et al. Article from 2022. They did a review of current research. They did note that cognitive behavioral therapy, specifically delivered via telehealth and also mindfulness, which is a subset of CBT, in the studies that they were able to find and review, all of which were a little bit older, were particularly effective as far as individual counseling. While it's not theory specific, Beatrice in 2020 and Sharma et al. 2022 both state that widows self-help group therapy seems to be the most effective treatment for this population, which is indicative of what the ladies told me at the event that I attended. Beatrice in 2020 also noted that the population tends to be older and less comfortable with individual therapy, which contributes to the lack of research and the lack of individual widows seeking therapy independently versus in groups. Specific and practical application. Practically integrating mindfulness and CBT techniques into widow support groups and meetings is likely the best immediate answer. It's where widows tend to turn to these groups for care, and if specific proven counseling practices could be integrated into these groups, either by professionals volunteering their time, or professionals volunteering to train or setting up training events for the leaders of these groups. That could be helpful. Professional counselors, leaders in the psychological community could also attend some of the larger national widows events and provide training for group leaders and how to integrate CBT and mindfulness techniques into these widow group meetings. Participation impact, I enjoyed attending. The motions were heavy, but the people were generally welcoming, appreciative that I was in attendance. I felt welcomed by the group. I could not help but think of some of my own experiences with loss, including loved ones dying, and also my divorce and my parents' divorce. Although divorce and having a loved one, a spouse especially, die is definitely different in a lot of ways. There are some similarities with experiencing loss. So it just made me think of some of those things and look for parallels. And I found myself identifying in some ways, and also being able to see how the widow's experience is different as well. I enjoyed talking to the widow ladies and hearing their perspectives on how society views them, either good or bad, and different reactions of friends, family, and churches. I was impressed with how resilient and motivated these women were to move forward in life in a positive way amid very hard circumstances.